Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Alien commanders in panic after first encounter with human warship. In the tranquil depths of the Uranus sector, the Zaranix exploration vessel Celestial Wanderer drifted gracefully through the void. Its sleek, iridescent hull shimmered under the soft glow of a distant sun as it surveyed the uncharted star system. On the bridge, Captain Zarin stood pensively, his slender frame poised with quiet authority. His pale blue skin was etched with the intricate markings of his clan, a testament to a long lineage of explorers and scientists. Around him, the crew worked diligently at their stations, their movements fluid and precise. Captain called out Tylaris, the ship's sensor operator. I'm detecting an anomalous energy signature at the edge of the system. Zarin turned, his large silver eyes focusing on Tylaris. Source: unknown, sir. It doesn't match anything in our databases. Zarin's brow furrowed. In the many cycles he had commanded the Celestial Wanderer, they had never encountered anything truly unknown. The Zaranix had meticulously catalogued every civilization they had come across, every natural phenomenon they had observed. An anomaly was unsettling. Helmsman Soren set a course to intercept. Talaris, continue scanning. I want to know everything about this anomaly before we reach it. As the Celestial Wanderer gracefully banked towards the mysterious energy source, Zarin couldn't shake a sense of unease. It hung in the recycled air of the bridge, an almost palpable tension. Captain Tylaris's voice held a note of alarm. The anomaly, it's moving, and its energy output is increasing exponentially. Zarin's eyes widened as he watched the view screen. There, against the backdrop of stars, a shape was materializing. It was angular, metallic, and utterly alien, and it was headed straight for them. Evasive maneuvers, Zarin commanded, his voice cutting through the rising panic on the bridge. But even as Soren's hands flew across the control panel, Zarin knew it was too late. The unknown vessel was already upon them, its hulking mass dwarfing the sleek Celestial Wanderer. We're being hailed, Communications Officer Leixis reported, her voice trembling slightly. Zarin straightened, composing himself. On screen. The view screen flickered, and then an image appeared that sent a collective gasp through the bridge. The being on the screen was unlike any the Zaranix had ever seen. It was bipedal, with pale, pinkish skin and a shock of dark hair atop its head. Its eyes, small and intense, were fixed directly on Zarin. This is Captain Naomi Vance of the United Earth Navy vessel Valiant, the being said, its voice firm and authoritative. Identify yourself. Zarin stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. I am Captain Zarin of the Zaranix vessel Celestial Wanderer. We are peaceful explorers, seekers of knowledge. We mean no harm. There was a pause, and then the human captain spoke again. We are also explorers, Captain Zarin, and like you, we seek peaceful contact, but we have learned to be cautious. This is our first encounter with your kind. Zarin nodded slowly. As it is ours with yours, perhaps this is an opportunity, Captain Vance, an opportunity for our species to learn from each other. Vance's intense gaze seemed to soften slightly. Perhaps it is, Captain Zarin. I propose an exchange, a delegation from each of our ships to meet and begin to understand one another. Zarin glanced around at his crew, seeing the mix of fear and excitement on their faces. This was a moment that would be remembered in Zaranix history for generations. The first contact with a new species, a potential new ally, or a new threat. We accept your proposal, Captain Vance. Let us forge a new path together in the spirit of peace and understanding. As the communication ended, Zarin let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The bridge was silent for a moment, the weight of the historic event sinking in. Then Zarin turned to his crew, his voice steady and determined. Prepare a delegation. Science Officer Kylox, Diplomat Velara, you will accompany me to the Valiant. The rest of you maintain high alert. We don't know what to expect, but we must be prepared for anything. As the crew bustled to action, Zarin turned back to the view screen, where the imposing shape of the Valiant loomed. He had a feeling that this encounter would change the course of Zaranix history. He could only hope it would be for the better. As the small Zaranix shuttle approached the Valiant, Zarin couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The human ship was massive, its hull a patchwork of dull gray metal that spoke of function over form. It was a stark contrast to the sleek, organic lines of Zaranix vessels. Beside him, Science Officer Kylox was practically vibrating with excitement. Can you imagine the technological advancements they must have made to build a ship of that size? He said, his voice hushed with reverence. The propulsion systems, the life support. Diplomat Velara, on the other hand, looked pensive. Let's hope their technological advancement is matched by their diplomatic advancement, she said softly. We know nothing of their culture, their values, we must tread carefully. Zarin nodded, understanding both perspectives. As the shuttle docked with the Valiant, he steeled himself. This was the moment of truth. The airlock opened, and Zarin stepped forward, flanked by Kylox and Velara. Waiting for them was a small group of humans led by Captain Vance herself. Up close, she was even more imposing, her uniform crisp and her posture military straight. "Welcome aboard the Valiant," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the cavernous docking bay. "We are honored to have you here." Zarin inclined his head respectfully. "The honor is ours, Captain Vance. We come in the spirit of friendship and learning." As the two groups fell into step, heading deeper into the ship, Zarin couldn't help but marvel at the sights around him. The corridors of the Valiant were wide and brightly lit, lined with screens and panels that blinked and chirped with a constant flow of data. Crew members passed by, their curious gazes lingering on the Zarinix delegation. Zarin noted the diversity among them, a range of skin tones, body types, and facial features that spoke of a species with significant genetic variance. "Your ship is impressive, Captain Vance," Kylox said, his eyes wide as he tried to take in every detail. The level of technology, the scale of it. Vance smiled, and Zarin was struck by how the expression transformed her face, softening the hard lines of authority. "The Valiant is the pride of our fleet," she said, "but I'm sure your own vessels are equally impressive in their own ways." As they entered what appeared to be a large conference room, Zarin and his team took their seats across from the human delegation. For a moment, there was a silence, a palpable sense of the momentous nature of this meeting. Then Vance leaned forward, her elbows on the table, her gaze intense. "So, Captain Zarin, tell us about the Zarinix, your history, your culture. We have so much to learn from each other." Zarin took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his species' future on his shoulders. "Of course, Captain Vance, let me begin at the beginning." As he began to speak, Zarin felt a flicker of hope in his heart. Yes, there were differences between their species, vast and perhaps insurmountable. But there was also a shared spirit of exploration, of curiosity, of the desire to reach out and understand the unknown. And in that moment, as the first tenuous threads of connection were spun between human and Zarinix, Zarin dared to dream that this could be the beginning of something extraordinary. As Captain Zarin began to share the history and culture of the Zarinix, the human delegation listened with rapt attention. He spoke of their ancient beginnings, of how they evolved from the shimmering seas of their homeworld, Zarya. He described their early forays into space, the wonder and excitement of discovering that they were not alone in the universe. Science Officer Kylox chimed in, his enthusiasm palpable. "Our technology advanced rapidly once we realized the potential of the stars," he said. "We developed warp drives, terraforming capabilities, advanced AI." Captain Vance nodded, her eyes alight with curiosity. "We too have made great strides in those areas," she said. "Perhaps we could compare notes, learn from each other's successes and failures." Diplomat Velara, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "What of your culture, Captain Vance, your values, your beliefs? These are just as important as technological advancement, if not more so." Vance leaned back in her chair, considering. "Humanity has a complicated history," she admitted. "We have not always been united as we are now under the banner of the United Earth Navy. There were wars, conflicts born out of fear, greed, misunderstanding." Zarin felt a chill run down his spine. The concept of war, of violence between members of the same species, was almost unheard of among the Zarinix. They had their disagreements, certainly, but they had always been resolved through diplomacy, through the pursuit of mutual understanding. "But we learned from our mistakes," Vance continued. "We realized that we had to put aside our differences to work together if we were to survive and thrive in the cosmos. The formation of the UEN was a turning point for humanity. It represented a new era of cooperation, of shared purpose." Zarin nodded slowly, processing this information. It was a foreign concept, the idea that a species could be so divided and yet still find a way to unite. It spoke to a resilience, a determination that he couldn't help but admire. As the conversation continued, the two groups began to relax, the initial formality giving way to genuine curiosity and warmth. Kylox and the Valiant's chief engineer, a lively woman named Dr. Amira Patel, were soon deep in a discussion about warp field dynamics, their hands sketching diagrams in the air. Velura, meanwhile, had engaged the ship's diplomatic officer, Commander Elijah Sato, in a conversation about the intricacies of interspecies relations. Zarin caught snippets of their discussion, terms like cultural relativism and xenosociology floating across the table. For his part, Zarin found himself drawn into a conversation with Captain Vance about leadership, about the challenges and responsibilities of commanding a starship. He was struck by the similarity of their experiences, despite the vast differences in their species and cultures. "It's a heavy burden," Vance confided, her eyes distant, "knowing that the lives of your crew, the success of your mission, rests on your shoulders." Zarin nodded, understanding all too well. "But it is also a great honor," he said softly, "to be entrusted with such a task, to have the opportunity to make a difference." As the meeting stretched on, Zarin realized that hours had passed. The easy flow of conversation, the sharing of ideas and experiences, had made the time fly by. It was with reluctance that he acknowledged the need to return to the Celestial Wanderer. "This has been illuminating," he said as they stood to leave. "A true exchange of knowledge and understanding. I hope it is just the beginning of a long and fruitful relationship between our peoples." Vance clasped his hand, and Zarin marveled at the strange sensation of her warm, firm grip. "As do I, Captain Zarin, as do I." As the Zarinix delegation made their way back to their shuttle, Zarin's mind was buzzing with all he had learned, all he had experienced. The humans were a fascinating species, complex and contradictory, but with a core of strength and determination that he couldn't help but admire. And yet, as he settled into his seat on the shuttle, a sense of unease began to creep over him. The humans talk of their past conflicts, of the wars that had nearly torn their species apart. It was troubling. The Zarinix had no frame of reference for such things, no understanding of the kind of thinking that could lead to such violence. He shook his head, trying to dispel the dark thoughts. Surely the humans had learned from their past. Surely their current era of peace and cooperation was a testament to their growth, their maturity as a species. As the shuttle docked with the Celestial Wanderer, Zarin tried to focus on the positive. The meeting had been a success, a first step towards a potentially pivotal alliance. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever differences they would need to bridge, the Zarinix and the humans had taken the first steps together. But even as he stepped back onto the familiar deck of his own ship, Zarin couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter had set something in motion. Something that would change the course of both their species' futures, for better or for worse. As he made his way to the bridge, ready to brief his crew on all that had transpired, he could only hope that the path ahead would be one of peace, of mutual understanding and growth. The alternative was too dire to contemplate. No sooner had Captain Zarin stepped onto the bridge of the Celestial Wanderer than the alarm klaxons began to blare. The serene blues and greens of the ship's lighting shifted to a pulsing red, bathing the faces of the crew in an ominous glow. "Report," Zarin barked, his earlier contemplation shattered by the sudden urgency. Tylaris, the sensor operator, was frantically manipulating her console. "Multiple unknown vessels have just dropped out of warp at the edge of the system," she reported, her voice taut with tension. "Their energy signatures are immense." Zarin felt a cold knot form in the pit of his stomach. On screen. The view screen shimmered, then resolved into an image that sent a chill through the bridge. A dozen ships hung in the void, their angular, predatory silhouettes unlike anything the Zarinix had encountered before. Their hulls were a mottled gray, adorned with jagged red markings that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. "Hail them," Zarin ordered, his voice sounding thin and strained to his own ears. Leixis, the communications officer, shook her head. "No response, Captain, but we're being targeted. Their weapon systems are locking onto us." Zarin's mind raced. This was a situation the Zarinix had never prepared for, had never even conceived of. They were explorers, diplomats, not warriors. Their ships were equipped with shields, but they were designed for navigating asteroid fields and radiation belts, not withstanding military-grade weaponry. "Evasive maneuvers," he commanded, even as he knew it was futile. The Celestial Wanderer was a research vessel, not a fighter. It stood no chance against a fleet of warships. The first volley of energy beams struck the ship's shields, sending shudders through the deck plating. Alarms screamed as the shield's strength plummeted, the energy grid straining to repel the onslaught. Shields at 30%, Tylaris cried, her fingers flying across her console. We can't take another hit like that. Zaren's heart hammered in his chest. This was it then. The end of their mission, their lives. All their hopes for peaceful exploration, for building bridges between species, shattered in an instant by an enemy they didn't even know. But even as despair threatened to engulf him, a new voice crackled over the comm system. Celestial Wanderer, this is Captain Vance of the Valiant. We're en route to your position, hold on. Zaren's eyes widened. The humans, they were coming to help, but why would they risk themselves for a species they had only just met? He had no time to ponder the question. The enemy ships were regrouping, preparing for another attack run. The Celestial Wanderer shuddered as it tried to evade, its engines straining to push the ship out of harm's way. And then, in a flash of light, the Valiant appeared. The massive human warship dropped out of warp directly between the Celestial Wanderer and the enemy fleet, its shields flaring as it absorbed the incoming fire. All ships, this is Captain Vance, the human's voice rang out over the comm. You are engaging in an unprovoked attack on a peaceful vessel. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. There was a moment of tense silence. Then, to Zaren's shock, the enemy ships began to turn, their weapons powering down. They were retreating. Celestial Wanderer, what's your status? Vance asked, her voice tense but controlled. Zaren took a shaky breath. Our shields are holding barely. Captain Vance, I don't know how to thank you. No thanks necessary, Vance replied. We couldn't stand by and watch an ally come under attack. Now let's get out of here before they change their minds. As the two ships pulled away, putting distance between themselves and the retreating enemy fleet, Zaren couldn't help but marvel at what had just happened. The humans, a species they had known for mere hours, had just risked their lives to save the Zareniks. It was a concept that was almost foreign to him. The Zareniks, in their long history of peaceful exploration, had never needed to develop strong military alliances. They had always relied on diplomacy, on the power of understanding and cooperation. But now, faced with an aggressive, unknown enemy, he realized that perhaps the humans' approach had merit. Perhaps there were times when diplomacy needed to be backed up by strength, by the willingness to stand and fight for what was right. As the Celestial Wanderer limped back to the rendezvous point, escorted by the Valiant, Zaren knew that this encounter would change everything. The Zareniks could no longer afford to be naive about the dangers of the universe. They needed to learn to adapt, to find a way to protect themselves and their allies. And perhaps most importantly, they needed to understand this new enemy. Who were they? Why had they attacked without provocation? What kind of threat did they pose to the peace and stability of the galaxy? These were questions that would need to be answered, and quickly. The fate of not just the Zareniks but of all peaceful species could hang in the balance. As he watched the Valiant through the viewscreen, its battle-scarred hull a testament to the strength and resolve of its crew, Zaren felt a new emotion stirring in his heart. It was a feeling of gratitude, of respect, and perhaps even the first stirrings of a deeper bond. The humans had proven themselves to be true friends, ready to stand beside the Zareniks in the face of danger. And that, Zaren realized, was a rare and precious thing in a vast and uncertain universe. The path ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges and threats they had never before imagined. But with the humans by their side, the Zareniks would face that future with a new sense of purpose and determination. They had been given a wake-up call, a stark reminder that the universe was not always a friendly place. But they had also been given a gift, the gift of an ally, a friend, a partner in the ongoing struggle for peace and understanding. And that, Zaren knew, was a gift beyond price. In the aftermath of the attack, the Celestial Wanderer and the Valiant limped back to the nearest starbase, a massive structure orbiting a blue giant star. The Zareniks vessel was badly damaged, its once gleaming hull scorched and pitted by enemy fire. But it was still intact thanks to the timely intervention of the humans. As the ships docked, teams of engineers and technicians swarmed over them, assessing the damage and beginning the long process of repairs. But for Captain Zaren and his crew, there was a more pressing matter to attend to. They gathered in the Celestial Wanderer's conference room, joined by Captain Vance and her senior officers. The mood was somber, the earlier excitement of first contact replaced by a grim realization of the dangers they now faced. Who were they? Zaren asked, his voice heavy with exhaustion and worry. The ships that attacked us. Vance exchanged a glance with her first officer, a tall, broad-shouldered man named Commander Ralston. We've encountered them before, she said grimly. They call themselves the Cradax, a warrior race, aggressive and expansionist. They see all other species as either potential slaves or potential threats to be eliminated. Zarin felt a chill run down his spine. The idea of a species that lived only for conquest, that saw no value in diplomacy or cooperation, it was antithetical to everything the Zaraniks believed in. But why attack us? Kylox asked, his voice trembling slightly. We posed no threat to them, we're explorers, not warriors. Ralston shook his head. That's precisely why. The Cradax see any advanced civilization that isn't militarized as weak, ripe for conquest. They probably saw your ship, realized you were technologically advanced but not armed for battle, and decided you were an easy target. Velara looked stricken. So this is the reality of the universe, she whispered. Constant conflict, constant fear of attack. Vance leaned forward, her expression serious. Not constant, no, but it is a reality we've had to face. Humanity learned the hard way that not all species are interested in peaceful coexistence. We've had to fight for our place in the galaxy, to defend ourselves and our allies from those who would do us harm. Zarin felt a wave of despair wash over him. The dream of peaceful exploration, of a universe united in the pursuit of knowledge and understanding. Was it just a naive fantasy? So what do we do? He asked, his voice sounding hollow to his own ears. How do we protect ourselves against an enemy like this? Vance was silent for a long moment. There's no easy answer, she said at last. Building up military strength, forming alliances with other peaceful species, working to understand and potentially negotiate with hostile races. It's a complex and ongoing process. She looked Zarin in the eye, her gaze intense. But one thing I can tell you is that you're not alone. Humanity will stand with the Zaraniks, will share our knowledge, our technology, our strength. Together, we can work towards a future where peace is more than just a dream. Zarin felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, relief, and a strange new feeling of kinship with these aliens who had so quickly become their friends and protectors. Thank you, Captain Vance, he said softly. Your words, your actions, they give me hope. The meeting concluded with a sense of renewed determination. There was much work to be done, plans to be made, defenses to be bolstered. But for the first time since the attack, Zarin felt a glimmer of optimism. As the Zaraniks and human officers filed out of the room, Vance pulled Zarin aside. Walk with me, she said, her tone making it more a request than a command. They strode through the corridors of the starbase, passing technicians and crew members from a dozen different species. The hum of activity, the low murmur of conversation in 100 different languages, was a testament to the diversity of life in the galaxy. I wanted to apologize, Vance said abruptly, her gaze fixed straight ahead. When we first met, I didn't fully grasp the extent of your people's commitment to nonviolence. I should have realized how difficult this situation would be for you. Zarin was taken aback by the admission. No apology is necessary, he assured her. We are learning, adapting. It is not an easy process, but it is a necessary one. Vance nodded, her expression thoughtful. I envy you in a way, she said softly. The purity of your ideals, the strength of your convictions, humanity. We lost that innocence long ago. We've had to become hard, cynical, always prepared for the worst. Zarin was silent for a moment, contemplating her words. Perhaps, he said at last, there is a balance to be found, between strength and compassion, between realism and idealism. Perhaps our species can learn from each other, find a middle path. Vance smiled, a rare, genuine expression that lit up her usually stern features. I believe you're right, Zarin. I believe that's exactly what we need to strive for. They walked on in companionable silence, two leaders from worlds light years apart, united by a shared purpose and a growing bond of friendship. There were difficult times ahead, Zarin knew. The Cradax threat loomed large, and there would undoubtedly be other dangers waiting in the vast reaches of space. The Zaraniks would need to change, to adapt, to find a way to defend themselves without losing the core of who they were. But with the humans by their side, with the strength of their newfound alliance, Zarin felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, they could face whatever challenges the universe threw at them. Together, they could work towards a future brighter than either species had dared to dream. It would not be an easy path. But as Zarin looked out at the stars, at the infinite possibilities that stretched before them, he knew it was a path worth taking. For in the end, what was the purpose of life, of sentience itself, if not to reach out, to connect, to strive for understanding and harmony in the face of an often hostile cosmos? The Xeronics and the humans had taken the first steps on that path. And though the journey ahead was long and uncertain, Zarin knew in his heart that it was a journey they would make together. The conference room on the starbase was bustling with activity. Representatives from the Xeronics and human delegations were deep in discussion, poring over star charts, technology schematics, and cultural databases. The air was thick with a sense of purpose, of two species coming together to forge a new path forward. At the center of it all were Captain Zarin and Captain Vance. They stood side by side, overseeing the proceedings with a shared air of determination and hope. "I never thought I'd see the day," Kylox murmured, watching as a human engineer explained the intricacies of their shield technology to a group of rapt Xeronic scientists. "Sharing our knowledge, our technology with another species." Velara nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's a new era for the Xeronics," she agreed. "A new way of thinking about our place in the universe." Zarin overheard their conversation and turned to them, a small smile on his face. "It's a new era for both our species," he corrected gently. "We have much to learn from each other." Vance nodded in agreement. "Humanity has always known that we can't go it alone in the galaxy," she said. "We've sought allies, partners, species who share our values and our vision for a peaceful, cooperative future." She laid a hand on Zarin's shoulder, a gesture of friendship and respect. "The Xeronics are exactly the kind of allies we've been looking for. Your commitment to knowledge, to understanding, to peaceful coexistence. It's an example for us all." Zarin felt a surge of emotion at her words. Just days ago, the idea of an alliance with another species, let alone one as powerful and technologically advanced as humanity, would have seemed like an impossible dream. But now, watching as his people and the humans worked together, sharing ideas and resources and hopes for the future, it felt like the most natural thing in the universe. "Together," he said softly, his voice filled with conviction, "we will face whatever challenges lie ahead. Together, we will build a future brighter than either of our species could have imagined alone." As the days turned into weeks, the alliance between the Xeronics and the humans grew stronger. Trade routes were established, cultural exchange programs were initiated, and joint military exercises were conducted to bolster their shared defenses against the Krodax and other potential threats. But perhaps the most significant development was the sharing of knowledge. Human scientists and engineers worked side by side with their Xeronics counterparts, each learning from the other's unique perspectives and approaches. Xeronics biotechnology, honed over millennia to create living ships and organic computers, was combined with human quantum computing and artificial intelligence. Human propulsion technology, capable of folding space and crossing vast distances in the blink of an eye, was integrated with Xeronics energy manipulation techniques. The result was a flowering of innovation and discovery that propelled both species forward in leaps and bounds. New medicines, new materials, new ways of harnessing and utilizing the fundamental forces of the universe. All became possible through the power of their combined knowledge and resources. And at the heart of it all, guiding and nurturing this unprecedented alliance, were Zarin and Vance. They had become more than just allies, more than colleagues. They were friends, confidants, two leaders united by a shared vision and an unshakable bond of trust. "Do you think they'll be ready?" Vance asked one evening as they stood on the observation deck of the newly christened Joint Starbase, watching the stars wheel overhead. "Our peoples, I mean, ready for what's out there, for the challenges we'll face." Zarin was silent for a long moment, contemplating the vastness of the universe, the infinite possibilities and dangers it contained. "No," he said at last, his voice calm and certain. "I don't think we'll ever be truly ready. The universe is too vast, too full of unknowns for any species to be fully prepared." He turned to her, his eyes shining with a quiet, unshakable faith. "But I think that's okay, because we have each other. We have the strength of our alliance, the power of our shared knowledge and determination. And as long as we have that, I believe we can face anything the cosmos throws at us." Vance smiled, a rare, unguarded expression that spoke volumes about the depth of their friendship, their trust in each other. "Together," she asked, extending her hand. Zarin took it without hesitation, his grip firm and sure. "Together," he affirmed, "always." As they stood there hand in hand, gazing out at the infinite expanse of the universe, Zarin felt a sense of peace, of rightness settle over him. This was their destiny, he realized. Not just the Xeronics, not just the humans, but all species who dared to dream of a better future. To reach out, to connect, to find strength and wisdom in the bonds of friendship and alliance. It would not be an easy road. There would be setbacks, challenges, moments of doubt and fear. But as long as they held fast to each other, as long as they remembered the power of unity and cooperation, Zarin knew they would prevail. For in the end, the universe was not a cold, empty void, but a tapestry of life and possibility, waiting to be explored and understood. And together, the Zaranics and the humans would weave their own unique thread into that tapestry, leaving a legacy of peace, discovery, and hope that would endure long after they were gone. It was a future worth fighting for, worth striving for with every fiber of their being. And fight for it they would, side by side, two species united by a bond that would echo through the ages, a beacon of light in a galaxy too often shrouded in darkness. Together they would face the unknown. Together they would shape the destiny of the stars themselves.